going to talk for about 25 minutes, I think. Occasionally my eyes are bigger than my stomach with slides, so if you see me just flicking through some videos, forgive me. But I'll keep an eye on the time, and then we'll have some Q&A. My background is originally at the BBC. I spent 10 years in BBC Radio heading up all of their digital services, which, if you believed the media, was a futile exercise because radio was dead anyway. Despite generating 1 billion hours of listening a week, the arrival of digital was predicted to forecast its demise. I then moved to TV, and we got the same story. And this was even more feverish at the time. This was about 2006, just as people were starting to get their heads around on-demand TV, arrival of YouTube, etc. And it was assumed that TV channels, TV schedules would be dead within literally 5 years, that over 50% of all consumption would be on demand, and broad ranges of programming, particularly factual live entertainment, would be dead by now. Say that to Strictly Come Dancing. So you can guess I don't necessarily believe in this. I believe that if the incumbents in that industry are ready to embrace the changes, the fundamental changes that digital brings, then actually there are opportunities, not just threats for them. 2 years ago, less than 2 years ago, I first heard the word MOOC. It's a silly word. It means massive open online courses. But if you're confused about what it is, you're not alone. I'm just going to flag that this video clip has one rather bad word in it. I hope you'll all forgive me for that.
All right, we're not going to pay. We're not paying.
No, but why? We just said we were going to have a drink.
We're not paying because this guy's a fucking mook.
But I didn't say nothing.
And we don't pay mooks.
Mook? I'm a mook.
Yeah.
What's a mook?
A mook? What's a mook?
I don't know.
What's a mook?
You can't call me a mook.
I can't?
No.
You can move.
First use of the word MOOC back in about 73 in Mean Streets. Around 2012, these suddenly started sweeping through higher education, and every commentator was talking about them, and FutureLearn was launched at the end of 2012 as an initially UK response to this phenomenon, and by July of the next year, we'd even made it onto Newsnight.
Now, supposing that instead of going to live in some crummy bedsit in pot noodle land, so you can have the privilege of listening to a burned-out hack give the same lecture he's been delivering for the last 20 years, suppose instead of that you could stay at home and hear some of the best lecturers in the world. The idea of MOOCs, massive open online courses, seems to some to promise a new future for higher education, an alternative to an expensive traditional one.
So people in the media often looking for the polarised arguments, the arrival of the new technology must mean the death of what's gone before. Huffington Post obliged with the end of the university quote. If you know anything about this industry, you'll have seen some of the hype and counter-hype that grew up around MOOCs during this period. You literally had some evangelists predicting that MOOCs would solve world poverty, replace degrees, destroy universities, make teachers redundant, dumb down teaching in general. And provoked by these extreme views, you had commentators on the other side who would just retreat into a trench to say, well, the whole phenomenon is just a myth. The teaching's just overly simplistic. The low completion rates are proof that there's no, real value in them beyond marketing, which seems to be a particularly dirty word in higher education circles. And their impact is irrelevant because most of the learners have got degrees anyway. So you saw these arguments playing out over the last 18 months or so. And it very much, follows what I saw in TV and radio, which is this polarisation of the debate. into either it replaces everything or it's a fad that's going to disappear in a couple of years. And of course that completely misses the point that the answer is somewhere in the middle. And in my view, what's happening with higher education is not MOOCs disrupting them, it's the internet, stupid. And MOOCs are just one example of that phenomenon. That is a phenomenon that's not going away. It is fundamental, it is accelerating, and it is something that the university needs to respond to. MOOCs may be one of a whole suite of tools they need to develop in order to deliver that response. But my belief has always been that rather than being terrified of the threats to the established business model, if the incumbent, whether that's the BBC in radio or TV, or in this case, the university, identifies the opportunities, and actually not only is it much more motivating for everyone involved in the university in meeting the challenge, but actually you can start to redefine your role in a fully digital world. And that can be an incredibly exciting thing to do. In my view, it's an opportunity for the university to transform the effectiveness of the services it's been trying to deliver throughout its history. So we launched FutureLearn in December 2012, initially on the basis of a PowerPoint deck and some early adopting universities. And just nearly a year ago, we launched the site and our first courses. So a quick summary of FutureLearn, and then I'm going to go into depth in some of the areas of what we're trying to do. No, I'm not. I'm going to do this first. So these are the opportunities I see. I'm going to go into depth in these in a moment, and this is the 1-minute video. So some of the areas we think that are particular opportunities and where FutureLearn's trying to play in a bit differently from what's gone with the original MOOC providers. So firstly, the most obvious point, the thing that everyone sort of gets with digital when it hits an industry is that opportunity to transform access and convenience. And we took as our inspiration some of the early pioneering moves in this.
Santa Lucia, oggi c'è altro da guardare. Colonnine sono sorte lungo i marciapiedi. Dalla macchina vi si innesta una spina. Sono i primi esperimenti dell'autotelefono inventato da Mario Iovine e da Angelo Maiello. Un apparecchio che permette di chiamare da qualunque punto della strada. Chiamare, ma non essere chiamati. Da questo ricevitore udiamo soltanto le voci che vogliamo, le voci gradite. A presto, avrà detto l'interpellato dall'altra estremità del filo. Sì, caro, ti raggiungo in quarta. E mai promessa di donna sarà stata più sincera.
forgive me, as you can see, I'm going to bombard you with a lot of PowerPoint, but I will give you the odd minute of light relief. But just that idea of making media convenient, accessible is clearly one of the key drivers, one of the key success factors of MOOCs. But we decided from the very beginning that it was an absolute prerequisite that you could learn as well on one of these devices as on one of these. And that's surprisingly, not been a feature of many of the online learning platforms there are out there, not only in the MOOC space but beyond. And we think we're only scratching the surface of what mobile learning could be, but we insist that every bit of video, every new feature, every bit of interactivity works as well on this as it does on a computer. We've tried to make FutureLearn colourful, enjoyable, and bring to life our partners' courses in fresh, exciting ways. Again, we have found much of online learning. Myself and most of my team are pretty new to online learning. That said, we're wholly owned by the Open University, so we're able to draw on their expertise. But we're trying to do things a bit differently, and we do think there's room for colour and great design in online education. And we have focused on trying to make the FutureLearn platform just really, really easy and simple to use. Really clear, uncluttered experience. Everyone understanding where they are in a course, what they've got to do next, how well they're progressing through that course. And there's a lot of visual language at play. There's a lot of complexity in trying to make it look simple, let's just say. And all of our courses, if you do one of them, you'll find there is a great deal of consistency between them, we hope. So secondly, we also think there's clearly scope for huge innovation in content and in the way you bring learning to life for people. We looked at early MOOC efforts and found some of the content disappointing. That idea of just sticking a camera on a lecturer and assuming that, if people watched hours and hours of video, then they'd learn something. So we've encouraged all of our partners to think about the internet as a medium in its own right and to repackage their courses and rethink for that world. I'm going to just use as a great example one of the finest examples now of a course that we've got that really takes this to a high level. It's Trinity College's course in Irish Lives, which is in week 6 now of its 6-week course, and is performing brilliantly. So I'll just show you a minute or two of their excellent trailer, and then I'll encourage you to go and have a look at it, because it's still open for you to go and have a look at, and I'll say a couple of other things about it after. You're not going to work on me? Why are you not going to work on me? Because I need to do that.
Ordinary people living through extraordinary times. Between 1912 and 1923, Ireland experienced radical changes that reverberate still. It was marked by revolution, guerrilla warfare, civil war and partition.
The history of this period has been told, retold, and constantly contested. But this course will attempt to do more than just focus on the familiar dates and faces. You will encounter a different kind of war and revolution, with multiple voices and multiple truths.
Over 6 weeks, leading historians in the field will challenge your understanding and certainties about what people thought they were fighting for. Why did people fight?
What was won and lost, and by whom?
What were the consequences for the ordinary man and woman?
I think often when you see one historian in front of the camera, that impression is almost built into whatever they say, that they have the right answer, and that there is only one answer.
Forgive me if I cut that one short. I'd encourage you to go and have a look at that trailer, but then, as I say, dip into the course. Go to futurelearn.com. I'll expect to see a spike in Irish sign-ups please. Well, I'll point you to some other things in a moment on that course, but it's a really fine example of what we're trying to do. So it's not just about high quality video and written materials, though. It's about trying to get the audience to actually do something, so learning through doing. And we've run some great courses on, for example, forensic science, which have been particularly successful because they get people to take their fingerprints, take their DNA. So I had my wife did the Strathclyde's forensic science course, and she came looking for a bottle of vodka on a Sunday morning. She's a little bit early for her normally, but the reason is she wanted to test our DNA, and she had all the kids doing it and so on. And there's courses on kitchen chemistry. They're on design, these are entry level or undergraduate level courses, but they're brilliant for parents to go through with the kids as well. And just other really imaginative examples. Leicester did a course on England in the time of Richard III, got people to cook some of the meals at the time, share photos of them on Flickr, on other sharing sites. We've got a great course called Build Your First Mobile Game, where the games that people build, they're sharing on Google Play. People are able to download them, play them, review them. We've got an amazing course called Creative Coding, where people use code to create amazing, beautiful images. And again, getting people doing things, taking them off FutureLearn, sharing them more widely across the web, just a start, again, we think, of the innovative potential of this medium. Believe me, we don't believe we're anywhere near the potential of what you can do here yet. So one of the other areas we're focusing on is social learning. Because we believe that that drive to sort of share and socialise is absolutely key in learning, as it is in other walks of life. I won't be able to show all of this one either, but I'll give you a minute's breather.
She's stranded, as so many girls have been before, miles from anywhere with no telephone near and no man who understands about cars to lend a hand. But to this young lady of tomorrow, the situation holds no terrors. This handy little device of the future is based on the Walkie Talkie, which saw so much use with the army during the war. Miles away at the garage, a light flashes on a set standing by, tuned to the same wavelength, and soon help will be coming to a girl in distress. And when you're out shopping, you'll take a walkie-talkie with you so that you can call up the neighbours and tell them what you've found, if anything. This way, one shopping scout can keep her friends in touch with what's on sale. Are you there? It's no good going to the butcher's in the high street.
Because there's no offal on sale. I recommend these Phaidon clips, and I do sometimes wonder whether some of the presentations we're giving about the future of education would be equally ridiculed in not too far in the future. But we've tried to build conversation and take the social web and bring it into FutureLearn, because we believe people learn better when they interact with each other, engage with the material. This is based on long pedagogical development within the Open University and leaders in open learning, particularly European approach to open learning. And we've tried to take the first principles of a social network and build them into FutureLearn. So everyone has their own profile page, they can look at an activity feed, they can follow other people, they can like each other's comments, they can reply directly to each other. So we're starting to try and enable them to take what's often a massive conversation and bring it down to a sort of more manageable sort of personal network that you can learn within, which will have the educator's presence in there. We know how important that is to people. And again, first stages for us of this. We're rolling out more and more tools to make this better for learners, for educators, but we believe this is the key and the most exciting area of innovation about MOOCs. A few examples. Start Writing Fiction course from Open University. People were asked to write 3 lines, their first 3 lines of a story, and 9,000 of these individual bite-sized stories populated this one step on the course within the next week. That was our record sort of number of interaction. That's now been smashed. We've got a course running in English language and culture from the British Council, which has got 120,000 people signed up for it, and individual steps on that have got 20,000 comments and so on. And again, if you're going to go and have a look at one course, have a look at Trinity's course, particularly because it's ending this week, so you can sort of see how it's developed during its run. And the thing I always say to people when I say look at FutureLearn is, look at the number of comments, 838 on there, and then go and just read a few of them. And read them at random, and I just picked one page out there, and you will find this isn't, just mindless sort of YouTube chatter. This is a highly erudite, passionate, excited audience, deeply involved in the topic. I mean, it staggered me. A few of us were talking just before this. I used to run message boards for the BBC, among other sins I had there, and I said we started, setting up loads of them all over the place, and then just spent the next 10 years closing them all down as they became more and more poisonous. Particularly areas like Radio 3, bizarrely. But anyway, so I've just talked about that course and how well it's doing. And if you look on there, actually, we're not a language course. We're nowhere near as good at learning a language as a platform like Memrise. But we work with the British Council to say, well, okay, you've got certain assets. We've got this aspect of social learning. Maybe we can bring that to life for intermediate English learners. And I tell you what, I think we've stumbled across something: social language learning. I'm just going to plough on. It's not just about the product, though. It's about the partnerships. Our partnership with our individual universities, like Trinity, and the collaborations we can create between different partners. So we now have 26 of broadly the top 35 UK universities as partners, a few high-profile emissions, like the Oxbridges, but we're very proud of this set of partners. Trinity were our first international, non-UK partner, which we're very proud of. But we've now got 10 partners dotted all around the world, drawn from broadly the top 200 universities in the world, including our first Asian partners in Korea and China. And that's growing fast. So great opportunity to forge collaborations around the world, not only between learners but between institutions. We also have as partners British Library, British Council, British Museum. FutureLearn now lives in the British Library, so we're on the second floor. We've got some lovely offices there. Bit of effort. We managed to bring the BBC to take its first steps in here as well. It's working with 4 different universities, creating 4 different angles on its World War I centenary commemorations. First one of those launches next week. And increasingly, we're trying to bring major employers and businesses into this world as well. We believe this can have a profound impact on the way that they engage with their own workforces, the training and development sector, the way they engage with supply bases, and their own customers as well. And the ACCA is an interesting example there in that it's co-creating and recognising a course with the University of Exeter called Discovering Business in Society. And those people who complete the exam at the end of that course will be eligible for part of their ACCA qualification. It's a bit of a first in this sector. Finally, this collaboration has been recognised. We were Startup of the Year. We were announced 2 weeks ago, and I put this in partly out of sheer boastfulness, but partly also to just make the point that I don't think many people would have seen Startup of the Year coming out of the university sector a couple of years ago, and the pace at which the sector's moved and its willingness to embrace change, I think, is out of kilter with its traditional reputation. We need to keep that going, though. Finally, we hope we're bringing new audiences, new markets to our partners. So FutureLearn now has nearly 650,000 people signed up. That's in less than a year. To nearly 1.5 million courses. They're doing more than one course each. Our trajectory's growing and growing nicely. Our user base is heavily international, so now 60% international, 40% UK, with territories like the US, China, and somewhere called Ireland coming behind the UK. Spain, India, key territories, key strategic territories for our partners, and key opportunities to promote education to these areas and potentially recruit students. We have some courses that are very big, so 35,000 course was Build Your First Mobile Game, 27,000 was Introduction to Forensic Science from Strathclyde, beautiful course. But we also have smaller courses, so 2,500 people doing a course in dental photography, which I have to say is one of the scarier courses if you want to have a look. But even that, the University of Birmingham delighted at getting actually largely a professional learner base, very international, studying this new area of dentistry together. And I read some of the most inspiring stories I wrote from dental practices in Paraguay, for example, who'd never come across this before and never got the opportunity even to sort of collaborate together because they were split apart by hundreds of miles, thousands of miles. So and just that stat, people 75% of people want to do another course straight away or in a few weeks. Our satisfaction figures are through the roof. I'll show you in a minute. I'm nearly finished. I've mentioned the British Council course, so I'll just move on from that. That's in its last week. MOOCs are often derided as being very male, very techie, very young. Our audiences are majority female. Our age range not only incorporates traditional student target markets, but broadens beyond into professional learners, general interest learners, retired learners. We've got a blog post on our site about Normax, as he's called, Norman, Normax to his friends, who's 92 and has done a few of our courses and is just the most wonderful advocate for what this means to him, for someone who he says has been dismissed by the traditional education community as still wanting to learn. So I'll end really with just a few of those pointers. That all the rest of the metrics I'm showing you suggest an operation that has started really well. We're delighted with the product, with the partnerships, with the stats we're getting so far. But it's really, when you look into those comments, when you see how people are feeling in those courses, you go, we're onto something here. And it reminds me of when we did launch the radio player, the Listen Again service in 2002, when we launched the iPlayer in 2007. And it's just those things that suddenly people look at and go, yeah, the web was sort of made for this. And I think that we're at the early days of really grabbing hold of the web to do something very powerful in education for everyone. So thanks.
Thank you very much, Sam.